Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Hello, good Sunday evening, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Super Sunday. I'm Dustin Klemann. Old Man Winter striking again with several inches piling up in the Billings region. After a string of warm weather weeks, city crews hitting the streets to begin plowing and hauling the main arterials. Several streets, including Grand Avenue, crews will create berms that will later be hauled away. With more than 3 inches on the ground, the city will also begin plowing residential streets tonight at midnight. Here's a look at the map showing the regions. CMG contractors will start in Zone 3, that is on the Billings West End. Zone 4 will then be the final area to be plowed. That's more on the south side. Remember, snow will not be hauled away in residential areas. The city does request to move your cars if at all possible. For updates, please stay tuned to KTVQ.com. Also, you can go on Facebook at the City of Billings Engineering page. And with that, we had more than just the 3 inches needed to trigger the residential plowing. Actually, Brett, double and then some.
Yes, as a matter of fact, as of 6 a.m. this morning, we picked up 6.8 inches of snow officially here in Billings. Some areas saw as much as 9 inches of snow, and more snow is falling, and that's going to continue over the course of tonight.
It's a good news, bad news thing, I guess.
Good news, bad news.
Depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it. Let's go ahead and take a look at our snow estimates for the through Tuesday, as a matter of fact. So we'll take this into the future for you and show you where that swath, the widest swath of snow showers is, and that cuts through portions of central and southeastern Montana over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. Let's go ahead and take a look at our satellite radar mix, and we've got that band of snow setting up almost identical to what we saw this time yesterday, and the snow showers will continue tonight into tomorrow, and we'll continue to head into the Tuesday region as well before things start to taper off. Travel will be difficult, so keep that in mind if you must travel. We'll have your complete forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Brett, thank you very much. We go to Crime Watch, where a man was stabbed, then thrown into jail after breaking into an ex-girlfriend's home this morning in Billings. 19-year-old Jared Archuleta allegedly broke into the home on the Billings south side and knocked over his ex-girlfriend. She armed herself with a knife and stabbed Archuleta in the shoulder and back before he fled the home. He was taken to the Billings Clinic for medical treatment, then booked to the Yellowstone County Jail. He faces felony aggravated burglary and an assault charge. A Billings man is also behind bars today, accused of raping a 15-year-old girl during her school lunch break. 20-year-old Dylan Curtin is charged with sexual intercourse without consent. The victim told her school resource officer that she left school to get lunch and encountered Curtin, who she talked to on Facebook. The girl agreed to go to Hardee's with Curtin, and he took her through the alley behind Hobby Lobby. That's where the victim reports Curtin forcibly raped her. Curtin took the girl back to school, and she went to the hospital for a sexual assault exam. DNA collected during the exam positively matches Curtin. He's being held at the Yellowstone County Jail on $200,000 bond. To national news, 2 people are dead after an Amtrak passenger train collided with a parked CSX freight train in South Carolina today. More than 100 people were injured. Chris Van Cleve reports from Columbia, South Carolina.
Early indications are Amtrak train 91 was traveling at about 59 miles per hour when it hit a freight train early this morning near Columbia, South Carolina. On board the New York to Miami train were nearly 150 passengers and crew. The 54-year-old engineer, Michael Kempf of Savannah, Georgia, and 36-year-old conductor Mike Sella of Orange Park, Florida, were both killed when the lead locomotive and some of the passenger cars derailed. Margaret Fisher is the Lexington County coroner.
We should have had a lot more casualties, but we didn't.
116 people were taken to area hospitals with a range of injuries.
The CSX was on the track that it was supposed to be on, and that appears to be a loading track.
The National Transportation Safety Board is now on scene to investigate the crash.
That switch was, as they say in the railroad industry, lined and locked, which basically means it was aligned for the trains coming down this way to be diverted into the siding.
Investigators remain here on the tracks. The NTSB was able to get its hands on the forward-facing camera inside the Amtrak locomotive. That video is being sent to Washington to be analyzed. Take a look at the train cars. You can see the force of this collision knocked them completely off the tracks. This is the third fatal Amtrak crash that the NTSB has been investigating since December. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, West Columbia, South Carolina.
We'll continue to follow updates both on air and online. In other news, members of Congress appeared on Sunday political shows reacting to the release of a controversial memo written by GOP House staffers. It alleges the FBI abused its surveillance powers while investigating possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. CBS News' Laura Podesta breaks down what both sides had to say.
Democrats criticized Friday's release of the controversial memo compiled by Republican staffers on the House Intelligence Committee. They're calling it an attack on the nation's intelligence and security agencies.
The interest wasn't oversight. The interest was a political hit job on the FBI in the service of the president.
The memo claims that just before the 2016 election, FBI agents sought to surveil Trump campaign foreign policy advisor Carter Page for possible Russian collusion. To obtain a warrant to monitor Page, the agents presented a dossier compiled by Christopher Steele, a former British spy. Steele, according to the memo, was paid $160,000 by the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign.
I would argue it's also somewhat unprecedented to rely on political opposition research to instruct and inform an application, and it's really bad precedent and unprecedented to not tell a court that a source has this level of bias.
President Trump tweeted Saturday night, "The FBI became a tool of anti-Trump political actors. This is unacceptable in a democracy." Democrats say the American people should note that a corresponding memo written by Democrats was not released in conjunction with the Republican one. If it were, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says it would become clear that the Republicans are cherry-picking facts. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is calling on the president to back the public release of the Democratic rebuttal to the GOP memo. Schumer contends the public is getting a one-sided account of the FBI's role in the investigation. February is Black History Month, and one historian is looking back at the impact that African Americans had on the Treasure State during its early years. Interpretive historian Ellen Balmer presented a profile of African Americans in the state this week. Balmer said Montana had its largest proportion of African Americans way back in 1890, and even then it was just 1%. At last checked, it's around half that. Nonetheless, Balmer noted African Americans came to Montana for a variety of reasons, some leaving slavery and others were involved in military. She did note there are challenges to tracking that history because much of it's oral history, and some likely never was passed down.
We're beginning to really concentrate on that history, and some of the stories that are coming to light are really wonderful stories, and the contributions of this particular minority is really astounding.
She added Montana's demographics are changing and becoming more diverse. She also said Malmstrom Air Force Base has also drawn in more African Americans to the state. Early in the season, a Veterans of Foreign Wars bar in Billings stopped showing NFL games when some players chose to not stand for the national anthem. That has changed for the playoffs. VFW Post 1664 in South Billings prepared to show the Super Bowl today. The bar started showing NFL partway through the postseason. Management says its decision is based on the networks not showing the national anthem. Thinking in the fall for the boycott that the NFL players were being disrespectful toward veterans.
They are going against everything we stand for, and so that's why we boycotted it, but now they're not. We just decided to let it come back the last 3 weeks. They weren't showing the national anthem on TV anymore, and they weren't showing people what they were doing, whether they were kneeling, standing.
Cook says the decision to bring back the games was not based on the amount of business, which he says went well even without the NFL. Still ahead on this Super Sunday edition of the Q2 530 News, 7 decades of counting geese and ducks. We'll tell you why in Montana's Fish, Wildlife, and Parks report next. And later in sports, one of the most unique trips a Montana sports team takes every year. an in-depth look at MSUB's journey across Alaska.